My name is Reverend Aya Dole, and I am a ministerial intern here. Come, let us worship together. Let us open our minds to the challenge of reason. Open our hearts to the healing of love. Open our lives to the calling of conscience. Open our souls to the comfort of joy. Astonished by the miracle of life, grateful for the gift of fellowship, confident in the power of living faith, we are here gathered. Come, let us worship together. The first reading is written by Rabbi Lawrence Kushner. Jewish tradition says that splitting of the Red Sea was the greatest miracle ever performed. It was so extraordinary that on the day even a common servant beheld more than all the miracles beheld by Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel combined. And yet, we have one midrash that mentions two Israelites, Reuben and Shimon, maybe Shimon, who had a different experience. Apparently, at the bottom of the sea, though safe to walk on, it was not completely dry, but a little muddy, like a beach at low tide. Reuben stepped into it and curled his lip. What is this muck? Shimon scowled. There is mud all over the place. This is just like the slime pits of Egypt, replied Reuben. What's the difference, complained Shimon. Mud here, mud there, it's all the same. And so it went for the two of them, grumbling all the way across the bottom of the sea. And because they never once looked up, they never understood why on the distant shore everyone else was singing songs of praise. For Reuben and Shimon, the miracle never happened. Let us take a moment to pray or meditate or practice silence. If you feel comfortable, you may close your eyes or simply rest them. Breathe with me. Relax your hands on your knees. Relax your shoulders. Feel your hands resting on your knees. Relax your feet and feel how they connect you to the floor. Now, when you take a breath, take it through your feet and let the breath fill you with strength and peace. For some of us, this has been a busy and hectic week. Some of us may have been too busy to be in awe. And we seek a moment of rest and renewal. For some, this week has been difficult, and we seek nurture and community support to strengthen our hope and our faith in new possibilities. Some of us just know too much to be in awe. May we all find ways for deeper appreciation of life. Let us breathe together in quiet and hold and pray the prayers of our own hearts in silence.
Our second reading comes from The Harmony of Healing by Barbara Road. The congregational minister stopped me in the aisle of the supermarket a few months after I had unexpectedly recovered from a serious illness. With a gentle but slightly teasing smile, he asked me, "How does a Unitarian deal with a miracle?" It was a good question, one which I had thought about a lot. I started by asking myself more questions. What is a miracle? An event that fills us with wonder. Is a miracle supernatural? That depends on how one defines supernatural. Traditionally, supernatural has been defined as something beyond the natural, an intervention from outside. But the supernatural also might be defined as that which is most perfectly natural, that which is whole, that which is completely true to its purpose in nature. In this sense, the Eden of the ancient story was supernatural. In this sense, the occasion when a body is allowed to heal itself, and does, is supernatural. Not all bodies will heal themselves. But on those occasions when everything within the wider body is working together, the tremendous skill and caring of the doctors and nurses, the encouragement and love and strength-giving acts of family and friends, the amazing healing powers of the human body itself, and the patient but passionate, life-loving spirit within oneself, then this definition of a miracle may apply. What does a Unitarian Universalist do with a miracle? She does what all humans do in the presence of wonder. She gives thanks.
What does a Unitarian Universalist do with a miracle? Dr. Bloom, who was known for miraculous cure of arthritis, had a waiting room full of people when a little old lady, completely bent over and half, walked in the room. She was leaning on her cane. When her turn came, she went into the doctor's office and then half an hour later emerged walking completely straight up. The woman who had seen this lady walk in with the cane and then come out from the doctor's office came up to her and in excitement said, "It's a miracle. What did the doctor do?" And the lady says, "Miracle, schmiracle. He gave me a longer cane." I think she might have been Unitarian Universalist. I think that's one of the examples how many of us deal with the miracle. We are rational. We believe that everything has an explanation. And so many have a very hard time with this concept of miracles. There's even a story of Thomas Jefferson, although he was not really a Unitarian. But there's a story that he used a razor blade to cut out all of the references in his Jefferson Bible, the references to the miracles that were supposedly performed by Jesus. casting out demons, feeding the 1,000, healing the lepers, giving sight to the blind, and even raising the dead. Some of us here might appreciate this story. The supernatural is the thing of the past, and we know better now. So it's not surprising for you used to be at odds with miracles if we look at our history. So I did not go through all of the historical writings that our ancestors, our faith creators have written, but Reverend Scotty McLennan did. And what Scotty found was that there were only 3 references to miracles. These were Andrew Norton, William Henry Furness, and Ralph Waldo Emerson. I think you might guess where this is going. In the early 19th century, there was a heated theological debate among Unitarians and Transcendentalists, and miracles were a part of this debate. So a little background. When Protestants started the new Reformation, they held a belief that the miracles had occurred during the biblical times as divine interventions, but they had ceased. They're no longer happening. It's called cessationist view. And this is what Andrew Norton argued, that those miracles that had occurred during the biblical times served as empirical evidence for the faith, as proof, as to say that this is a valid faith. And yes, miracles did provide credibility and authority to claims that were made during the biblical times. But Furness, one of the Transcendentalists, and Emerson even more so, said that religious faith does not require confirmation by supernatural events. The truth of religion must be founded on reason and human experience, but not miracles. For Transcendentalists, the idea that God's actions have stopped was unacceptable, and it was actually wrong, because they believe that God continues to be present, that we can still experience God's presence and work. They rejected the supernatural part of the miracles, and in the famous Divinity School address, Ralph Waldo Emerson explained that Jesus did speak of miracles because he felt man's life was a miracle and all that a man does. That life itself is a miracle and all we do involves a miracle. When I worked as a chaplain, I often met people who believed in the power of God to intervene in supernatural ways. I met them at the dying person's bedside, and the family would ask me to pray for a miracle. Sometimes I was asked to pray for a miracle even after the person had died, because they believed in the power of God to raise from the dead. This was not the time for me to start the transcendentalist debate. But as you can imagine, it prompted me to rethink and think about miracles quite a bit. Just like Barbara Road had done in that reading we heard earlier. The word miracle points to the object or a sense of wonder amazement, awe. It might be something unexplainable, something beyond our understanding, or it might have a scientific explanation, but so amazing that it infuses us with wonder and awe. To me, it is a miracle when a person finds hope in a dire situation. When a family finds ways to gain strength and have a life after a loss of a child, that is a miracle. When a person or family or community experiences meaningful change, transformation that brings hope, laughter, and healing, that is a miracle. For those of us for whom Advent is a season, we know that this time is about the waiting for the hope, for deliverance, peace, to come and lighten up our life, to change our circumstances for the better, or change our hearts. Change them towards love and compassion. Very soon we will be hearing again stories about the misery of Ebenezer Scrooge and the amazing transformation that will happen to him on Christmas morning. We will hear about Grinch or watch It's a Wonderful Life and other movies about the miracles of human goodness, community, redemption, all the miracles of human laughter and joy, miracles of light, hope, and peace in the face of hatred and despair. All of these aimed to make us believe that goodness is possible, even when life does not seem to be giving any sight of that yet. One of the greatest miracles in the Jewish religion is the parting of the sea. And yes, we know today that there is no historical evidence for the actuality of this story. There may have been some people who did go through the Exodus experience, but the scholars, for the most part, are convinced that all the stories from Exodus to conquest are tales written to validate the religious beliefs. The way the story of the parting of the sea is written suggests that it is a liturgical drama to be reenacted over and over again. It invites to consider the oppression, liberation, wilderness, and finally receiving the promise. These as underlying themes of the story. The Israel people had suffered under the Egyptian rulers. The oppression was so great that they cried out to God, and God heard them. God promised to bring them to a land with honey and milk, and God did so. God brought them out of Egypt, including this event of parting of the sea, so they could escape Egyptian army that was coming after them. Then Israel spent some time in the wilderness and 40 years later entered the promised land. This Exodus story, John Buren suggests, was written to provide ground for hope in the circumstances that presented none. It is rather a miraculous story. It is actually so powerful that it has influenced not just the Judaism as faith tradition, but also political and social movements from the Puritans to the founding fathers of America, through Marxism, to every contemporary liberation movement. I imagine that you and I know what it is like to be delivered from oppressing circumstances, from difficulties, from suffering. So we can imagine the joy and the singing that is happening on that hill. And yet, as Midrash suggests, it's also possible not to notice the miracle. Reuben and Shimon were so focused on the mud right in front of them that they did not realize what had happened. Their eyes and hearts missed the experience of wonder. We may too sometimes feel overwhelmed by ongoing economic certainty in our lives, or political frustrations, or environmental challenges, or violence, that we may not focus on the everyday miracles. But the miracles of change and transformation also don't often happen instantaneously. They take time and work. They come slowly. So it's possible to miss them because they take so much time. Community is a place where miracles can and do happen. When people are not afraid to hope, to seek and ask for what they need, where in spite of the evidence to the contrary, love lives and lives in abundance. The unexpected blessing, the realization of long-awaited dream, the release from suffering, the courageous journey of recovery, and the travel through loss and grief. Sometimes the miracle is life restored. And these experiences can leave us speechless. Sometimes we stand in awe in the presence of the wonder. We sing praises, and we give thanks. So what does a miracle look like in your life? What would it be if tomorrow you wake up and the miracle has happened in your life? What are you going to do with that miracle? What do Unitarian Universalists do with a miracle? Amen.